It's the Paris Chong Show.
I wanted to talk to you about your new company, which is publishing.
Yes.
Or the Lab Press. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
So, publishing company, right now, I'll kind of give you the immediate and then we'll kind of work backwards.
Okay.
Right now we're focused on comic book graphic novels. That's kind of our phase one. We do want to move to doing art books focused on illustrators. A lot of these comic book artists have do other forms of illustration. We're working with an illustrator who's based out of Turkey, who also kind of does the equivalent of sort of the covers for a sort of like the New Yorker-ish.
Okay.
And he has really great stuff. His name's MK Perker. So a lot of these artists, there's another guy named Bill Sienkiewicz, who's a really famous illustrator that we're working with, who's amazing, does these very abstract kind of style stuff. So it's really interesting. And I'm reliving a lot of my early teenage years through
Yeah, I was
this.
wondering. You must love comics.
But it's also, my degree is in art history. I'm a semi-professional photographer, um, an art enthusiast, art collector. So all these things are tied to each other. And
I didn't know you were an art history major.
yeah,
Oh my God. Where'd you go to school?
Columbia University.
Oh, of course you did.
Um,
Oh, that makes sense.
and then, but kind of, we can talk a little bit about how I kind of got to this, which hopefully you find interesting. Is I was
You better be.
a filmmaker for a long time.
You did Concrete Blondes.
Not
the porno.
No, well, it's sort of loosely inspired by the name of the band, but
I love that.
but I had worked, I interned and worked at Miramax in the early aughts.
Okay.
And then I was producing, and then I threw my hand at directing, and through a lot of my late teens and the early aughts, I was really inspired and transfixed by independent filmmaking. I thought there was so much interesting stuff going on. It was kind of fun. It was crazy. You would go to the theater, you didn't know what to expect, and that kind of like, the Sundance vibe. And I'd see pictures of Sundance. It wasn't just the celebrities, but everyone looked like cool. It was like interesting. It was very cinema, but it was very artistic.
Right.
And I was producing and then directing, but still producing independent films from about 2004. And then I filmed that I wrote, directed, and effectively executive produced. We shot in 2015 called Carter in June, and which is a film I had a lot of fun making. Had a really great cast, and I really enjoyed the process of it. But the problem with independent film, certainly after around 2010, is business-wise, you're always kind of, I don't want to quite use the term chasing a white whale, but it was a
term I've never heard.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, that would suck to chase a white whale.
The Moby Dick reference.
Oh, sorry. I'm not a big Moby Dick fan. I know it's shocking, but true.
But the industry was changing because a lot of that, I don't want to say independent film revolution, but a lot of what happened was fueled by the fact that the DVD market exploded in the late 90s.
Yeah.
And studios were able to take chances on smaller films, outside the box films, because if you had a hit, the DVD market was huge. And then once the DVD market started to peter out a bit, things were kind of boosted by foreign pre-sales, but that kind of petered out also, and the margins just got smaller and smaller. A really good friend of mine produced Napoleon Dynamite.
Wow. Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, and he's like, we shot that movie for $400,000. You couldn't make that movie today. You'd either need to make it for like $30,000, or you would need like Anthony Hopkins to play Uncle Rico and pay him $3 million.
So when you're saying chasing the white whale, they were kind of chasing around for like funding?
Well, no, but it was just a $2 to $5 million film with someone who was recognizable from TV with some decent production value if it was a good film, had a good chance of at least making its money back.
Right.
And then,
Okay.
so the
Gotcha.
first film I did, Concrete Blondes, I'm not going to say the amounts, but we pretty much broke even on that. Um, and then
Which isn't ever the goal when you make a movie,
no,
right? Or when you ever do a project.
but for your first independent film to break even is like, okay. I mean, people saw it.
Right.
People don't. There's a lot of independent films that nobody ever sees.
Yeah.
So people saw it, people liked it. I go on social media once in a while just to kind of see what people are
Mhm.
saying, and people, it still has a following. Um, Carter and June was the follow up, and was a technically better movie. I'm not gonna say one's better than the other one, but uh, it's a little bit better, tighter made
Mhm.
film. But and for just a little bit more. But the offers we got from the exact same people were a third, a
So
fifth.
do you feel like so making being an independent film director, did it feel like defeating to you, or were you just
It was just one of those
was it
things.
hard?
It was difficult, and we knew it was hard. We knew it was difficult, but it was it just kind of, it's not really there anymore. It's
Right.
really, the industry really changed. It was changing very much
It's
pre-COVID.
still changing, right? There's still so much going on.
Oh yeah, well, well, I gotta say is it changed very much pre-COVID, and then streaming really changed. And streaming's
Yeah.
kind of
Changed everything.
finding its footing now, but I realize the independent film, the way I used to make films, that just doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
And I started to realize this around 2018. And then I directed some branded content, and produced some yeah, spec commercials
Right.
and branded content, stuff like that. But then that really changed during COVID.
Well, what are you thinking? Like, are you still interested in directing films? Like, are you waiting for
I
something to change, or are you kind of
I would
moving on from it?
well, I would definitely direct if something
Came up.
came up. Um, but uh, the guy who was he actually was my cinematographer on Carter and June, a guy named Dag and Merrill. Um, he started talking about this idea of doing this comic book graphic novel, and we kind of put together people, and we put together a company on this, and it's great
Are you having
because
it sounds more fun
it's
too
a
than
lot.
making a movie?
It's a different kind of fun,
Mhm.
but it's also, your budget is it is what your imagination is.
Right.
Someone explained to me that when you're doing an independent film, if you've got a scene where you need to have two guys kind of doing dialogue or an important conversation or exposition or whatever, oh, you want to do it at like a quiet coffee shop
Mhm.
because it's an easy thing to control. They're not expensive. There's a lot. You can kind of build those sets.
Right.
The sets exist. Um, but with a comic book graphic novel, you can have two guys who are in the middle of a giant battle with 1,000 people, or you could have it
Yeah.
flying through space.
So
So
wait,
It's the Paris Chong Show.